There are places on this earth that no map dares to show. Places where the wind still carries the whispers of those who died chasing gold. Long ago, in the deep heart of Africa, beyond the burning dunes and beneath skies heavy with sand and silence, there once stood a kingdom called Olu'Rai, the city of eternal sun. They said its people vanished overnight, leaving behind walls made of gold, and a curse strong enough to bury time itself. Centuries later, one man dared to go where even spirits feared to walk. His name was Malik Nuru, a treasure hunter with a heart consumed by the lust for discovery. He'd heard the stories of kings who angered the gods, of rivers that turned red, and of treasure that shone brighter than the morning star. But to Malik, curses were just tales told to keep men from greatness. He believed that beneath every ruin lay opportunity, and beneath every myth, a truth waiting to be unearthed. When an old map surfaced in a desert market, drawn in faded ink and sealed with strange symbols, Malik saw his destiny. He followed the map through endless dunes and broken hills, until one night, under the ghostly glow of the moon, he saw it. A valley swallowed by mist, and in its center, black ruins glimmering faintly in the dark. The lost kingdom of Olu'Rai had awakened. But what Malik didn't know was this: the kingdom never wanted to be found, and those who disturbed its rest were never allowed to leave whole. The villagers of Tandala, a small settlement mile from the dunes, had always feared the sands beyond the red cliffs. The elders spoke of voices that called from beneath the earth, of travelers who entered the mist and returned without faces, or without souls. But Malik was not a man of faith or fear. He was a man of proof, the kind who chased the impossible until it broke in his hands. When he arrived in Tandala with his dusty bag and foreign eyes, the people watched in silence. Children hid behind doorways. Elders whispered prayers under their breath. He asked the village chief, Elder Kwame, a tall man with weathered skin and eyes that had seen too much, about the ruins beyond the dunes. The elder's reply was soft but heavy. The sands remember, stranger. And what sleeps beneath them remembers too. Leave the past buried, or it will bury you. But Malik smiled. He'd heard the same warnings before. In the jungles of Congo, in the caves of Sudan, in the tombs of Mali. Every treasure had its guardian, every myth its fear. And fear, he believed, was the shadow of fortune. For 3 days, Malik rested in the village, studying his map and the stars. Children followed him from a distance. Some called him mad, others whispered that he was chosen. Only one person dared speak to him. Amina, Kwame's granddaughter, a young woman who had lost her parents to the desert years ago. She told him stories about the kingdom that once ruled their lands, a city of golden walls, ruled by a king who demanded too much from the gods. When the gods refused, he sacrificed his people, and the land turned to dust. Amina begged Malik not to go, but his obsession was already too deep. At dawn on the 4th day, Malik packed his compass, rope, water, and the map, and set out toward the red cliffs. Elder Kwame watched him go, muttering, "Another soul walks into the mouth of the sun." For 2 days, the desert stretched endlessly. No birds, no shade, only wind that sang like morning spirits. By the 3rd night, Malik reached a ridge that overlooked a vast hollow. The air shimmered like smoke. At its center stood the ruins, broken pillars, shattered idols, and what looked like an ancient palace half buried in sand. The carvings glowed faintly under the moonlight, forming spirals and eyes that seemed to move when he looked away. As Malik descended into the hollow, the air grew heavy. Each step echoed strangely, as if the earth itself was hollow beneath him. He camped near a fallen statue of a faceless king and studied the map again. In its corner, written in a forgotten script, were words he couldn't translate, except for one symbol: a sun devouring another sun. That night, he dreamed of drums in the dark, of golden hands reaching for him, and of a voice whispering, You have come to take what was never yours." When he awoke, his footprints from the night before had vanished. The next morning Malik began his search. He marked the ruins, mapped the corridors, and unearthed fragments of pottery engraved with eyes. At midday he found the entrance, a cracked stone arch leading into an underground chamber. The air that flowed from it was cold, carrying the scent of old dust and iron. Torch in hand, he descended. The walls were covered in murals, depictions of a golden city, people worshipping a sun-shaped idol, and finally, chaos. Storms, death, and a figure crowned with serpents standing over the dead. At the end of the hall stood a massive door carved with hundreds of small hands, reaching, pleading, grasping. When Malik pushed, the door moaned open, revealing a vast chamber glowing with faint blue light. And there it was, the treasure of Olu'Rai. Piles of gold, jewels, and ornaments lay scattered across the floor. In the center stood a pedestal, upon which rested a golden mask shaped like a human face, smiling but with hollow eyes. Malik's heart raced. He had found it, the proof of legends, the crown of his life's work. He reached out, his fingers trembling, and the moment he touched the mask, the air shifted. The chamber grew darker, the light dimming as if swallowed by shadows. From the walls came a faint sound, a whispering like many voices speaking at once. Then the ground shook. Malik stumbled back as the mural figures seemed to move, their eyes turning toward him. The golden piles around him began to melt, flowing like molten wax. A voice echoed through the chamber, deep and distant. "Gold cannot feed the dead. Return what is not yours." Panicking, Malik grabbed the mask and fled through the tunnels. But every passage led him deeper. He found himself running in circles, chased by flickering lights that whispered his name. When he finally emerged into the open air, dawn was breaking, but the desert had changed. The dunes seemed to pulse, and faint outlines of walls rose and fell beneath the sand, like the city was breathing again. He tried to find his way back to the cliffs, but the landmarks had vanished. Every direction looked the same. By the second day, Malik's food was gone. By the third, he began hearing the drums again, faint but near. And at night, he saw shadows moving in the mist, figures of men and women dressed in gold, their eyes glowing like dying embers. On the fourth night they spoke. "You woke us, Malik Nuru. You took what bound us. Now we will take you." He dropped the mask and ran, but it clung to him. Its reflection followed in the sand, smiling even when he wasn't. No matter how far he walked, the ruins were always ahead, like time itself had folded upon him. At last, Malik stumbled upon the old palace again, except now it was whole. The city of Olu'Rai had returned. Torches burned, drums thundered, and spectral figures filled the streets. Dancers, priests, soldiers, all moving in endless ritual. At the palace gate stood the faceless king, the figure from the mural. His body carved of gold, his eyes empty voids. The mask in Malik's hands began to glow. "You sought the sun," the king's voice boomed, "and now you will burn with it." Malik tried to scream, but the mask rose from his hands and pressed itself onto his face. It sealed against his skin, burning, fusing. He clawed at it, but the more he struggled, the tighter it bound. The voices of the dead surrounded him, chanting, crying, praising, condemning. The sands rose like a storm, swallowing the city once more. And when silence returned, the valley was empty again. Except for one statue, half buried in gold dust. A man with a golden mask, forever smiling. The wind over the dunes howled for 3 nights before it went still. When the silence came, it was not peace, it was emptiness. The valley where Malik had stood was gone. No ruins, no palace, no sign of the city that once glimmered like a mirage of gold and sin. Only an unbroken sea of sand, smooth and untouched, as if the desert itself had swallowed a memory. Weeks passed before the first travelers from Tandala came that way, Shepherds searching for strayed goats, their faces wrapped against the sun. They saw something strange. A small rise in the sand, shaped almost like a man kneeling in prayer. At its peak, tiny grains of gold shimmered faintly, catching the dying light of dusk. The villagers whispered. Some said it was a statue. Others said it was a warning. When word reached Elder Kwame, he came in silence, walking with his staff and Amina beside him. She had not spoken Malik's name since he vanished, but her eyes were restless, searching the dunes as though his ghost still lingered. They stood before the mound as the desert wind moved softly around them, whispering, shifting, sighing. Amina knelt and placed her palm upon the sand. It was warm, unnaturally so. She felt a faint vibration beneath her skin, not from the earth but from something deeper, something alive. A tremor of sorrow or perhaps guilt. "Grandfather," she whispered, "it feels as if the desert remembers." Elder Kwame closed his eyes, his old face drawn like parchment. "The desert remembers everything," he said, "especially those who defy its silence." That night, the villagers built a cairn of stones at that spot, not as a monument of honor but as a seal. They did not speak Malik's name aloud, nor did they sing the farewell songs. The old women of Tandala burned herbs and poured milk into the sand, whispering blessings and curses all at once. When dawn broke, the wind began again, soft at first, then stronger. It carried with it the faint sound of chains, the metallic chime of something buried deep. Amina turned toward the dunes and swore she heard laughter. Muffled, distant, not cruel but hollow, like the last breath of a man who had lost everything except his pride. Days turned to months. Malik's story became a shadow among the firesides. Children asked about the traveler who had walked into the desert, but the elders would only say, "He found the sun and burned with it." No one went near the red cliffs again. Those who did claimed to see shapes moving in the mirage, golden silhouettes kneeling, bowing, dancing endlessly in the heat. Some swore the sand there shimmered too brightly, as though the gold beneath still bled through. And every year, when the dry season came and the dunes sang at dusk, Amina would stand on the ridge and listen. Once, she thought she saw a faint glimmer far in the hollow, like the reflection of a mask, smiling under the sand. That evening, under the weight of age and memory, Elder Kwame called the people of Tandala together. He spoke not with anger but with grief. "The desert keeps its secrets," he said, voice echoing in the quiet night. "It punishes those who take without giving." Malik thought he sought treasure, but he found truth instead. The gods do not curse men without reason. They only give them mirrors to see themselves. The villagers listened, the firelight dancing on their faces. Kwame looked toward the horizon, toward the endless golden sea that had devoured generations. "Greed," he said softly, "is a hunger that eats the soul long before it eats the body. It blinds a man to everything, to warning, to mercy, to life itself." He thought the world was his to conquer, but he forgot that even dust remembers its kings. The fire cracked, and the wind shifted, carrying the faint smell of sand and iron. That night, Amina dreamed of Malik. He stood at the edge of the dunes, no longer human. His body half gold, half shadow. The mask covered his face, but his eyes, faint and sorrowful, looked through it like windows of regret. He raised a golden hand, and his voice, distant but clear, spoke. "Tell them. Found it. The treasure, the truth. There is no sun worth chasing if it costs your soul." When she awoke, tears streaked her face. She never dreamed of him again. Decades passed. Elder Kwame was buried beneath the baobab, and Amina became the new keeper of stories. She told the children of Tandala the same tale her grandfather once told, of kings and curses, of treasure that could buy kingdoms but never peace. And yet she changed one thing. She ended it not with fear, but with warning. "The earth gives," she would say, "but it remembers what you take. If your hands are greedy, it will make your heart empty. If your heart is empty, even gold will feel like sand." And sometimes when the fire dimmed low and the wind began to hum, she would pause, her eyes wandering to the dunes beyond the village. She would swear she saw him there. Malik, the man who chased the sun, standing still as stone, his golden mask catching the last light of dusk. A ghost. Lesson. A man who found everything and lost himself. The lost treasure of the cursed kingdom is not just a tale of gold and ghosts. It is a mirror held up to every soul that hungers for more than it needs. Some treasures shine too brightly because they are meant to blind. Some kingdoms fall not because of their curses, but because of the men who could not resist them. In the end, the desert buried Malik as it had buried the kings before him. But his story lives on, carried by the wind, whispered through the sands, a warning to every wanderer who believes the past can be owned. Remember this. The desert gives nothing freely. The gods lend their gifts, but always come to collect. And those who chase the sun will always burn before they reach it. If this tale of greed and ghosts touched you, like, share, and subscribe for more haunting African folktales every week. Where the sand remembers, the spirits watch, and every secret has a price.